Welcome to Chain Reactions, a weekly live stream and podcast from myosin.xyz, the leading global marketing network. I'm your host Blake, joined by my co-host Polina, and join us as each week we explore the chain reactions happening across crypto by interviewing the leaders behind the industry's most impactful companies. We go live on X every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern and release a podcast the following week. Let's get started.
Locked in for good.
We're locked in. Well, listen, folks, we're going to get started. Thanks for bearing with us for a few minutes. And welcome one and all. This is Chain Reactions, your weekly live stream hosted by yours truly and my co-host Polina. How you doing, Polina?
Hi. Good.
Beautiful. And yeah, this is our weekly live stream hosted by myosin and us, where we talk to founders, heads of marketing, and just overall awesome people from around the crypto, blockchain, on-chain economy. And this week, really excited to have Mashal on from Octant to talk all about obviously Octant, as well as the blockchain for good research report that we collaborated on. And I put out, because I think just a little bit of quick context behind that. I think, at least for us, past couple of years has been a very interesting time in the industry. And I think with some of our members, they had the brilliant idea. And I want to shout out Ali, who's one of our DAO members, who had the great idea of, hey, we should put out a report. So obviously people within crypto, but especially outside of crypto, can understand, what, outside of the speculation and the gambling and the degen stuff, what is blockchain doing for the world, and why is it making the world a better place, and why do we want it? And I think, we'll get into it, but I think Octant is doing some great stuff, and we'll talk about that. But I'll be quiet now, and we'd love to have Mashal kind of introduce yourself, kind of walk us through your journey, how you got here, and obviously, what you're up to at Octant. Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. And thank you for having me. I'm Mashal. I had marketing at Octant. And then how did I get here? So I've got a security background, no business being in media, but ended up in it just because I loved storytelling, and just this was the age of new media, quite literally. I know everyone is talking about new media now, but 2016 to 2021 was truly the golden age of new media companies. It was BuzzFeed, and BuzzFeed had like this big fundraising round, and then everyone was like, wait, we can all actually just create and change the landscape of media, so let's do it. So I built a company called The Tempest, grew it to tens of millions of readers, just had a lot of hardcore media. So editorial verticals, podcasts, everything you can think of. And let me tell you, it is not easy to be in media. It is so cutthroat, and it is so all consuming, and it can be amazing, but it can also just take such a big toll on you. So I did that for 6 years, and then I was really, really burned out, and I wanted nothing more to do with media. And so I did a couple of different things. This is also like, post-COVID, a lot of reflection and whatnot, and decided to do a couple of fun things. I built a D2C company in the Middle East. It was one of the first ones to tackle a lot of taboo topics and issues, and it had a very strong sustainability angle, and so did that, and realized a lot of my media playbooks can just apply to anything, really, and it's so fun, and I love building audiences and communities, and started a consultancy where I worked with founders and startups and all kinds of projects to help build their audience and scale them up. And that's sort of how I got back to crypto. So my first introduction to, I would say, Bitcoin was like 2014. I was anonymously writing articles about Bitcoin in student-run publications, trying to get people to learn what it was.
But you were deep in it early on. You were always interested in some form.
I was, and I had that background, and we would run workshops trying to teach people what it was, but I didn't publicly feel comfortable writing my name, so I just was anonymous. And I think someone in a Boys Club, they were asking if I still have a copy, and I'm going to try to find one of the, because it was like print magazines, so it was it was fun.
I smell a rerun coming. I don't know.
Yeah.
Special NFT attached. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Running on a Bitcoin L2. But so I did that, and then NFTs were really popular, and I couldn't understand for the life of me why. I remember that one headline. I think Visa had spent a lot of money on I think it was Bored Apes or no, CryptoPunks.
Oh yeah, they were playing around with it. They got a lot of money to spend. They're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll play around with this thing. Why not? Yeah.
But I couldn't understand why, and I was so fascinated. And then my first NFT project was that I got, or the first NFT that I ever got was um, Crypto Covens. So that was a great one. And I loved, they did this whole initiative where they were trying to get more people into this space. And I had always been on Twitter, but like Web3 seemed cool and NFTs and all these things. And I had been like passively looking at Ethereum at Bitcoin throughout the years, but wasn't particularly involved in projects. But NFTs was sort of how I got back into the space and worked with a bunch of different projects. And then I'd say like the public goods side started with Gitcoin, where I started writing a bunch of case studies for them around the power of community decision making, and how this could work and bottoms up. And just like it
Yeah.
was such a cool concept. This is also when I was super enchanted by DAOs. And,
Yes. Listen, some
the
of us
gold
are still
rush.
here. We're trying to keep it going. Yeah.
This is, I mean, y'all are probably one of the I don't even know what DAOs are alive at this point. You're
Yeah.
probably one of the top, like the top 5, I would say.
Yeah.
And I'm actually
We're
still
still
very
here.
impressed about how y'all operate, run. This is not normal. This is like y'all made it. Everybody else is, I have no idea where the hell everybody else is. But
Well, they try
yeah,
to vote on everything. That was probably the challenge. Not everything needs to be voted. Voting's good. Governance is good, but maybe it's not all governance. Yeah.
there's also a lot of decentralization theater. But
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, there was, so that's when I was part of like Bankless and Gitcoin, Protein
Mhm.
Radar. Like I loved DAOs so much and just
Yeah.
was super interested in token models, did a bunch of reports on that. And that led me to public goods. And then I just thought, there is so much money in grants. What is going on? Why has no one done a report on this? And where's all this money going? Because you see all these programs giving out money that feels like fuck you money, excuse my language. But like, what is happening? Why aren't there more reports on this? And so Eugene heads MetaGov, where he used to at that point. We decided to partner together. We co-authored the first State of Web3 Grants report. And that was a very fun exercise because we got to have a really in-depth look into how these programs operated, got to hear a lot of hoarder stories too, and just a lot around what was happening with funding, or lack of. And we got to really do a lot of comprehensive analysis on, what the state of funding really was. And then we did those reports 2 years in a row, and kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. But when I did the first report, I got introduced to a project called Octant that had just started. And they were looking for their first marketing, like, senior marketing hire, or they weren't looking for a marketing hire actually. But they kind of felt like maybe they needed some support. And so we started chatting and I realized, oh wait, like they're onto something here. How do more projects not know about the cool work that they're doing? So I joined at the end of 2023, and fast forward to 2026. I can't believe it's been so much time. And I still think we're relatively like underrated, relatively unknown still. I think there's a long way to go for us in terms of our goals and everything else. But that is how I got here. Ended
I
up
love
ended
that.
up in marketing and grants and shaping programs to
Well,
help.
listen, I feel like nowadays it's needed more than ever, right? And so with that, I think, I'm sure there's a lot of people within our space, but I'm sure especially outside of our space who have no clue what public goods is, and more specifically, I'm sure Octant is. So we'd love to hear a bit more about Octant, its evolution, its journey, and how you guys have been helping, make the world a better place. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Octant is a project that was started by Golem Foundation, and the model was pretty simple, which was if you have GLM, you can lock it and you get ETH. And the way the project was funded was so early inception, there was this big ICO for a project called Golem, and then that split into two completely independent entities. There's Golem Factory and Foundation. A lot of people actually mix up both, thinking they're the same, but they're not. They're completely different and independent. And Foundation took part of the treasury, which was like a little over 100,000 ETH. They decided to stake it and use the staking rewards to fund public goods on Ethereum. What are public goods? We're going to come to that. But if you have GLM, which is a token, you can use it by locking it on an app called Octant. And every 3 months, you had a 2-week period where you could either take the ETH personally, and you could allocate it to a project. The projects were usually either pre-chosen or there was a vote that would happen, and there would sometimes be a theme. But if you chose to allocate it to a project, you would get matched. So say you're putting in like you're using yield to fund a project, and it's not your actual like amount still stays protected. Like your initial GLM can be unlocked at any point. And so that was an interesting model, and it was very different because in Gitcoin and the model that most platforms have is like you're personally donating. This is a little bit different where you're locking your tokens and, it's rewards on top of that. So that's how we started. We've given out roughly 1 million every 3 months since we started our first funding round. We have had 10 funding rounds so far. We're going to be on our 11th one. Or is it 12th one? Because it's 0 to 10. Yeah, we're on our 11th one now. And so it's been, but we've had quite a few funding rounds. And yeah, been giving out that amount in ETH quite literally to projects. In terms of what public goods are, I mean, I think the textbook definition would be projects that are open, accessible, benefit everybody, sort of for like the positive good, I would say. And so in Ethereum, that means it could be technical projects and infra projects. And there's a lot of ways to interpret what a public good is, because there's definitely been a time where everyone thought they were a public good. And one of the hot topics on Twitter still can be Pizza DAO. Is it a public good or not? And Pizza DAO members who love and are so passionate about Pizza DAO do believe it is a public goods. If you go onto Twitter, you'll get all kinds of definitions and interpretations on what is a public good, and that's very interesting.
Wait,
Like,
quick side note. Can we get into that? Because
go
I
for
don't
it.
think I've seen this specific debate. I have been to a Pizza DAO event. I guess thinking out loud, to me, I guess my understanding of Pizza DAO, right, is that everyone kind of puts money in and then they kind of choose to help throw pizza parties around the world if you ask for funds and whatnot. So
Pizza for
theoretically,
good.
yeah, it's pizza for good. But what's the counter to that? What's the challenge that it is not a public good? I guess I'm
Well, the
curious.
interesting
Yeah,
thing is, Pizza DAO, I mean, Stacks is, I love Stacks as a
right.
community builder, probably one of the best ones in our
He's a G.
industry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the counter is like, sure, and everything is accessible, but then
Mhm.
what is not a public good? Because you can technically use definitions to justify anything as a public good. Like, is this podcast a public good? It is open, it is
Mm,
accessible, anyone can consume
yeah,
it,
right.
what
So is it
definition?
about the motivation? Is it like the desire to create profit that impacts that or the lack thereof? I don't know. I'm just thinking
I
out loud.
mean,
Yeah,
it's not.
Maybe it's more just a pizza community rather. That's the counter, I guess. I don't
Just
know.
But it's
yeah.
not, because they have so much
Mhm.
more. I mean, Pizza DAO is an interesting one because they have so
Yeah.
much work in, that they put into organizing and all of that,
Hmm.
and just educational elements too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, with that definition, you definitely have questions around what exactly is a public good. So what we had to learn really
Mm.
quickly was you can't just fund public goods. You have to get very specific around what you're funding if you want to see results. And then we have had a lot of experiments around different aspects of funding and themed rounds. So we did a climate round last year, and we funded both crypto blockchain projects that were in climate, but also just traditional climate projects that were doing good work in a bunch of regions and crisis areas. Like one of the ones that I'm really proud of that we were able to fund is a project called Blue Filter that helps with accessible water. And they've had their water filter that does not need electricity and whatnot. And it was primarily being used by farmers in the West Bank. And after what was happening in Gaza, it was actually being used by people in Gaza too, just for drinking water. It was previously being used for farmers, but when you don't have access to water. But like that was one. There was definitely some really interesting projects in Ukraine, coral reef projects, like just different aspects of even climate access and work too. So that was really, really cool. And then we've also funded creators. So end of last year, if you saw $1 million for Ethereum creators, that was our first round funding.
I
Yeah,
remember that. Yeah. I think I had
Yeah.
some friends actually participate. I think some are listening right now actually because I remember them talking about it.
we
Yeah.
had some fantastic people and
Yeah.
projects participate. But yeah, we did that. So we've done a lot of experiments with partners too now. And our model and what we've become now is we've grown out of just having you need GLM and then you're gonna get ETH
Mhm.
and participate in funding rounds. Octant is its own entity now, and we're building tools and infra and a lot of funding experimentation and R&D around how to onboard, allocate, distribute, and evaluate capital. And then there's a lot of other aspects. Like we really believe in the sustainable funding model. And so we launched our DeFi vaults last year. What those do is, instead of just, again, depleting your treasury, use DeFi yield to fund whatever is important to you. And so using, yield as a funding model is one that has worked for us really well and effectively. And so we've built these DeFi vaults for other people or projects to do the same thing. And that was our first time really delving out of just the very specific funding rounds that we did to a lot more, because at the core of it, I would say that we really care about Ethereum and Ethereum sustainability. And so there's a lot more this year that we've got planned around what we're thinking in terms of what should get funded and how it can get funded, and just a lot of those experiments too. So yeah, that's us now.
Because
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah,
it's
yeah. And I'm sorry if you hear meows. My cat is he's just trying
Meow.
to get some attention in the background.
You can bring the cat on as a guest too. We don't mind.
I wish he would let me do that. He just he's got
He's just like,
love his
he's like,
face.
no cameras, please.
No cameras. Very much, yeah. No paps at all. But in terms of the funding round frequency, so, and this is one of the coolest things we just shared on Monday, which is we're going to have a cool new experience for our users. And we've been working on this for a while, but our previous funding rounds would be 3-month cadences. So 3 months is like the locking period, and then 2 weeks for allocating it, where you take an action. What we're building now kind of frees us, because we have a lot more flexibility in the kinds of rounds that we can run, and in terms of the time period, and even just a lot of other aspects. And we didn't have that flexibility because of the tech side before. So we are actually in the midst of thinking through our strategy for this year around what should be funded, why we should be funding it, and what kind of results we're looking for. We are just starting that work for this year. So I'll have a lot more in the, in the next couple of months. But at least for now, one thing we've gotten really clear on is it's easy to say you want to run a funding round, but there's so many logistics and ops that people don't realize. Like the application cycle, for example, we have realized that having a limited number of projects is very effective for funding, especially if it's a big pool you're distributing, because it's better to have bigger pools versus having hundreds of projects who don't get as many amounts. And even for quadratic funding to come into play, like a lot of people don't understand how it works, right? So having a limited projects that are pre-vetted and pre-selected really helps. Having people vote on the first selection of projects is not as effective, because it becomes a popularity contest. But if the projects you selected already are vetted and you know they're great, no matter how the funding plays out, it's a good project getting funding. So, it kind of removes a little bit of risk in terms of, if you're going to Sybil, at least it's a good selection. So, that's like one tier that you sort of crossed off. In terms of others, like the application cycle, right? Sifting, like the creator one was an interesting one, because we got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications, and to finalize 30, like we went through, I think it was over 1,000 hours collectively as a team, just to go through and revise all these different projects and keep shortlisting to ensure we had a good selection that was representative of the world, of good work, of the kinds of projects, the kind of content, the kind of channels, and then even what would help grow Ethereum, right? So that was a really, really tough one, and it was a really good learning lesson. And that one we had done with the Ethereum Foundation's funding coordination team. But in terms of frequency, like there's a lot of funding experiments. Like right now we also have a funding round called StreamVote. And that's a cool one, because anyone who got a POAP at DevConnect and our current users can vote on it. And you can quite literally stream funding continuously. So projects keep getting funded on a minute by minute basis, and this keeps them accountable. It's sort of like other projects can add to the matching pool, but it adds accountability where it's not just, hey, you got funding and now you just bounce, right? You can actually even change your votes if other projects are performing well. So as a decision maker, that's like an interesting one, because we were curious how people would vote and allocate, and we saw some interesting results there too. So we have been doing a lot of those rounds in terms of like frequency and stuff. And I think it would just boil down to put some time into thinking about what kind of results you want, what you want to see, and then think through every part of that funding round, not just before, but even after, in terms of what kind of support projects could need or would need. And that definitely helps make a round better.
Yeah. And I think this is all really interesting here, right? Because I think it's something like that, a little bit of that behind the scenes stuff is things that most people I think are not thinking about, right? They're just like, yeah, you get a grant or you get, actually, do you consider it a grant or how do you, it's not a grant per se, is it?
It
It's
is a
a
grant. It is a grant,
grant.
but it's
Yeah.
sort of as it's a in some cases I guess it would be like a retroactive grant and
Yeah.
a mix
Right.
of what you can work on. So it's sort of like a mix of
Yeah.
both. If you're a
Mm.
completely new project versus someone who's shown results and delivered and all of that, like,
Yeah.
you probably have higher chances of being selected because you've proven that there is some
It's just
level of result.
better
Yeah.
credibility,
hmm
right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
One question I have, and I think we both kind of know, but just again, like I always love, I think it's a part of this exercise is a bit of educating the folks, right? Which is like, so what is it specifically about blockchain? I think that you think that, because public goods, it exists outside of the blockchain world, certainly, but I think it's definitely an area within our world that has taken on definitely some importance in many ways. But so yeah, I'm just kind of teeing you up here, I guess, which is like what is it about blockchain that unlocks something different, right? Rather than like, why not just do this with just a regular grants team and just cash or dollars or whatever it is. Like, why Ethereum and all this? Yeah.
I think the speed is definitely one. And I remember when I was interviewing grantees on the case study side even years ago, the big difference, and even with the current climate projects that we had last year, the big standout thing was, wait, that's it? We have the funding like immediately? And there's not like weeks or months of bureaucratic processes.
Mm,
So I think from that perspective, for projects that need immediate funding and even for crisis related areas and just in real
yeah.
world, right? Like time is money. And a lot of times, the more time that's spent that could have been utilized working on the thing instead of working on how to get the funding that you've already gotten approvals for. So there's a lot of I think like the speed factor is really cool. I think the other factor, and I have mixed opinions on community decision making. I don't always think it's the right approach. But at the same time, I can see models where it works. And, we obviously have a model where people effectively decide instead of taking personal ETH, like, hey, let's give it to a project. So I can absolutely
Mm.
see the beauty in that. Um, but I I think there is something around even bottoms up decision making in the community aspect, the democratic aspect around um, people getting to decide what's important to them. So if you wherever you live, right? Like if you want to help decide how or even have your vote be heard around how should bigger city budgets or statewide budgets be spent. Now you've got a system where people could actually do that and you can play out based on everyone's thoughts and votes, like how should this be split up? I'm not saying that model should be done everywhere, but you have never had, I mean, I've never had the opportunity to actually help decide that, right? But it brings a whole different level of both transparency, but also just decision making and being able to give your perspective on that. So I think that's really interesting too. Um, and then I also think about things from the perspective like crypto as a whole, from a financial aspect. Like I'm from Pakistan and I've seen how my family back home, they keep money in dollars or euros or foreign currency that's more stable because the local currency keeps, the inflation is too high and it's not a safe currency to bet on. And so quite literally, like, anytime someone comes over, like what they would prefer is, hey, like we would love to kind of keep our money in external ways. And so I think one of the first things from a crypto perspective that I always thought about was one, when you think about remittances and things like that, like it's so fast, but also it's a more stable slash safe way versus like government alternatives that, most people don't trust. And so from a very personal perspective, that is so important to me. I think, and it's probably one of the most important use cases, at least, because since I've been growing up and I've been an expat, so I've been a third culture kid. I grew up in the Middle East for, and lived there for most of my life. You always knew that expats sent money home, and then you have these big Western Union and just like exchange queues. And it takes time, and the exchange
And
rates aren't
massive
always great.
fees. Yeah.
100%. So this kind of gives more accessibility to people as well to be able to
Mhm.
do a lot more money management, I would say. And then the DeFi side of it, which is a little bit more complex, but I think it makes it more accessible. The fact
Yeah.
that you can have even low risk things that you can do with your money online. I think like that's cool. I don't think this was as accessible And I think there's definitely that angle too, where I think about like even these bigger nonprofits who may have donations that might be bigger, like how do you more effectively use it? And the
Mhm.
sustainability angle, and where I hope we get to at some point is, right now, of course, we're starting with Ethereum, but I think this model can be applied to real world projects.
Hmm.
If you have your money in crypto and you're putting into low risk DeFi, and then you're able to deploy it over time, you are generating funds. You are a little bit more sustainable in how you're doing it. And I think there's a whole different way of planning because, of course, it also needs
Yeah.
significant capital. But if you can get to that stage, I think there's a lot more that's possible potentially. So, those are a couple of things that I think about that I could see it working out. And then even taking it
Right.
back to my media days, right? Like most of the companies that were around when I was running a media company, most of them have died. Funding was a big problem.
Yeah.
Media has been so underfunded. And it's more important than ever today. This is why I love Substack models of like independent writers being able to get
Yep.
funded and,
Micro creators and letting them find their, the people who
yeah,
love what they do. Yeah.
100%, but it takes so much work. And if
Yeah.
we had more funding for media companies, or even possible ways where communities could help fund it, like a lot of times it's even the tech rails didn't exist at that time, right? To be able to do
Mhm.
like um, a round of that sort now, like that would be so cool. So I think there's so many media use cases that can also come to
Yeah.
life. But the problem is we have a terrible rep where we kind of don't care as much about the human element from a very specific way. And I think we have a lot of time and work that needs to be done until we even get to that stage of, hey, normal people will stop thinking about crypto as a scam and think about all these sustainable ways to apply it.
Wait, guys, quick, sorry to interrupt. We may have a special guest speaker pop on.
Oh,
It was
nice.
it was like kind of planned but not planned, so we're just gonna wing it and go with it. But please,
Yeah.
Michelle, finish your thing and I'll get him in and we'll keep moving from there.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think from the first point, the institutional side, sure. Of course, we need a lot more work there, and I see us at some point leading that work too, and at least playing a key role in those conversations. So that is absolutely a thing. And then from the retail side, I think that awareness already exists. Maybe not everybody, but especially in regions where these challenges exist. From the financial side, there is awareness, and need sometimes also forces you to learn. So one of the coolest, even success stories was Stellar did this work with, I believe it was the German government, and they were able to. They had a bunch of doctors and nurses and whatnot, and then they were able to help fund them through crypto. And then the off ramp, they actually worked with P2P and different like on the ground, a whole network of folks who would help with the off ramp side, and that was fascinating. So, and that was just because normal bank transfers would not work, and it was so hard to get money into Syria, So just for operations and whatnot, and so like it was just interesting how things are being done. They're never front facing, and you may not see the media headlines, but there absolutely still already is work being done that's very interesting, and I hope we. I hope we also start seeing more of this in Ethereum. I'm sure there's stuff that's going on that I'm not aware of, probably, but yeah, that was so cool to hear about when the seller team was talking about it. I feel like
You know what
it's
we should
just
do? We should do a poly market
what?
on the public goods and then donate that money to public goods. Meta.
Always,
Yeah.
always, always. But I think what credibility and legitimacy means in every industry is different,
Yeah.
and in every region is different. And I would say our challenge right now is also just sort of the people who have access to these rooms and the formats that they've created. There's not as much of a social impact element,
Mhm.
as much as there is like financial and capital incentives, right? So that's quite different. But we need to nail down the formats in terms of legitimacy building as we think through how do we build more trust. And we need a lot more concentrated effort on that. And not just being cool on crypto Twitter, but like other avenues that are offline in person, and in those rooms, I would say.
So I actually have a question. It's an honest question, so I hope it's taken the right way. But I think like even when I first heard about Octant a while back. Oh, we have a guest. Hold on.
Hi, Griff.
Hello, Griff. How you doing?
GM. How's it going, guys?
GM. We're doing good. I just actually had a quick question for Michelle, and then we'll throw it over to you. But my honest question, and I think this would be really helpful for anyone listening as well, is like, as far as I understand it, right? Like with Octant, the idea is, I take my ETH, I can stake it and I can, people earn yields. And then that's, as we talked about, being donated to public goods. But I have to be honest, like I can be a bit selfish as a human being, right? And I'm saying, well, my ETH, it's only generating like, let's say 4%. And like, so I guess my honest question is like, can I have it both? Right? Like, how can I profit and give to the people, like donate to the causes I care about? Is that something? Because to me, I guess it wasn't immediately clear of like, if I'm going to do this, what's in it for me outside of feeling good and helping the world, right? Because if we're being honest, I think a lot of people we are selfish creatures, right? And so how do you appeal to the altruistic side? And I think that is something maybe that crypto can uniquely unlock because of the economic systems that have been built, but curious.
The system for what's been possible is you lock GLM and then you get ETH. So you're not locking your ETH, although that would be so cool to see the day when we can do that. But I actually think like that's been the whole experiment from the start. It's for us to see, will people actually want to participate? And we have some interesting results. And this is sort of part of why I'm also kind of disillusioned around community models. There absolutely are people who care and who want to fund projects and that sort of want to give. Like we've seen a lot of even bigger whales who completely allocate all of the ETH that they get. And it's significant amounts, like 7 to 10 ETH every 3 months. They could take that for themselves. There's nothing from our side restricting them and saying, hey, and even in all of our messaging and content, we're not trying to push users to do one or the other. We're hoping they will, of course, allocate to projects because that would be great, but there's no actual hard, fast rule there. And I think there will always be people who I think it's totally okay if you're selfish and if you're like, hey, I want to take that ETH, I need funds. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Because for every person who does that, there will still be people that will continue to donate. Like that's just been the history of the world, right? For every person who's trying to make all that money, there's so many more people that are trying to give out money in every shape and form, in every social status, financial status, right? You see the $1 donations and you see the hundreds of millions, and that will continue to be a reality. I think from our perspective, at least, I agree with you totally. Why would I be incentivized to give if I don't have any stakes in it? And this is why, at least the starting point that I see is we're starting with the Ethereum angle, because that to us is way more important than trying to tackle all the bigger world problems that exist.
Yep.
I think we won't get there if we can't even prove it in one ecosystem and one that really matters to us. So that's the first thing, is running different funding models and experiments and mechanisms to see what will stick, what will even get people to participate. Is it even wise to have that? And then other angles that you're talking about, which is it would be so cool where if I have like X%, this is a percent I just want to give away.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many opportunities here, which, a lot of them we're also working on already behind the scenes. There's much more in the next couple of months we'll be able to share. But even one from a religious perspective, like I'm a Muslim and a practicing one, we are required every year to give 2.5% of our entire wealth that we've had for a year to charity. And it doesn't mean income, just wealth. So if I have gold, I actually need to wait every year. And gold is a big thing in South Asian families. So, this is your financial stability. If you get married, you get a bunch of gold as a financial security aspect for women specifically. So I'm actually required to give 2.5% in cash to charities. And what I choose to give to is my own thing. But you actually have again, 26% of the population that are practicing that do this. So I think from a tech perspective, if I could actually, even for crypto, it's called Zakat. That's the actual term. So if I could just have my crypto that I just genuinely, I don't have to think about it. This is such an annoying manual process because when we're doing this every year, during Ramadan time and whatever, we have to literally look at different wallets, do the calculation and be like, okay, cool, this is what we're going to do. And it's an annoying manual process.
Yeah.
I think this is such an interesting use case no one has solved for yet, is literally just, hey, here's how you pay Zakat, an easy way for a crypto user. And there are so many crypto users that are Muslim who would mentally be like, you know what, this is like a time saver and whatever. So this is another use
That's
case.
a shout out to anyone who's building like a wallet or wallet aggregator. Big opportunity in the market right there. Partner with
and
these guys,
integrate with charities and public goods and all of
Honestly,
that.
We got to send references here in. Okay, so
I just want to give a shout out to Octant. It's never been easier to feel incentivized to donate because of the matching. You know,
Yep.
when you see like, because I'm a GLM staker for sure, and I pull the last few rounds. I pulled out a little bit for myself, but I just can't not donate, because it's like I throw in like $20 and it allocates hundreds of dollars, you know, and it's like I take $20 myself, or I can like donate effectively like $200, $300. It's almost, you make it hard to not donate.
Yeah.
You know?
The multiplier effect. We like
Yeah.
it. Well, and with that, actually, Griff, I know you just came on. I would love to. We're kind of winging it here because we're getting into it, but we'd love to have you kind of introduce yourself and Giveth and the role you play within this beautiful world of public goods.
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I founded Giveth in 2016, right after my first project, the DAO, was hacked and all that stuff, right? And now Giveth has been a donation platform and really a pivotal, like of movement within the Ethereum space to bring public goods forward. And we've been through the ups and the downs, many cycles, and somehow survived. But because it's always hard in the public goods space to stay alive, but we did it. And now it's going full circle, actually, because just last week I launched a new project called the DAO Security Fund, and the DAO is actually back, fueled by Giveth. Is doing a lot of the infrastructure behind the scenes to make it all work. But yeah, so I started with the DAO and did Giveth for a decade, and now the DAO is coming back, and Giveth is a major piece of it. In fact, we're very much inspired by Octant. The DAO had like in edge case funds. We're talking like the DAO was so huge back in the day. It raised 14% of all Ether in existence at that time.
Crazy.
And when the DAO hack happened, 97% of people were covered by the hard fork, right? 3% of people were edge cases. So I led a lot of different teams around solving the problems after the DAO hack. Whether it was the White Hat Group, which rescued a bunch of funds to protect it until a hard fork, and then also rescued funds on Ether Classic, giving everyone money back. So the DAO hack is this weird thing where everyone actually made money. They got all their Ether back, and then also we rescued the ETC and gave 70%. The hacker had 30% of the ETC. We had the other 70%. So everyone got their Ether back and ETC. And then the hacker had ETC. So even the hacker made money. Everyone made money. This is a weird thing.
Only in crypto. Only in crypto.
Only in crypto.
And it keeps getting weirder because... So I led another team, which became the Curator Multisig, and this was to recover the edge case funds. So like I said, 97% DAO token holders could get the money back. It was all good. 3% of that money wasn't covered by DAO tokens. So it was like people who paid extra money for DAO tokens during the token sale, people who burned their DAO tokens to create child DAOs, and like just other weird things. People who just sent money, people just send money weird places, right? It's like, oops, I accidentally sent DAO tokens to the DAO. Funny things like that, proposal deposits, stuff like this, right? All that stuff added up to about 3% of the total funds that were in the DAO. And so we recovered all that money and made sure all those people got their money back. And we were just volunteers. And at the time it was like $6 million, right? Then, well, Ether's price has gone up a lot. And even though 80% of that $6 million was claimed, that 20% of $6 million became, it wasn't even 20%, it was like 18%. It became over $200 million. At some points, it was over $350 million, right?
That's crazy.
Also only in crypto.
Only in crypto. Only in crypto can like 0.3% of some project turn into, hundreds of millions of dollars. So here we are. And we were in a weird spot where it was me and 5 other guys, and we all had like pretty hot keys, like old JSON file keys from 2016 that we're just like holding, and now it's like on a 3 of 6 multisig.
Almost a decade later, here we are. Yeah.
And all of our addresses are public and we're public, and it's like, when's the wrench attack happening? We needed to fix this, right? But we're also volunteers, and so we found a cool way, very much inspired by Octant, what we can do is, while we still allow people to claim this money if they haven't claimed, and actually 50 ETH has been claimed since we did this announcement last week, which is cool. Well, while we're doing that, we can actually take some of the money and stake it and earn revenue, and use that revenue to protect this money, as you should. $200 million worth of crypto. You shouldn't just YOLO it with volunteers, right? Like, we're just, so now we have some revenue.
Responsible stewards. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We can be responsible stewards with it. We can stake it and earn revenue from it, but the revenue is going to be so much that like it doesn't cost that much to secure it. So now we're totally doing Octant style bottom-up distribution of funding of these staking rewards. So we're going to do, the big difference between Octant and us is we're not going to like manage it ourselves. We're going to let like other DAO providers maybe even join forces with you sometime, Mashal, on like actually doing a distribution for Ethereum security.
Collab.
Oh, for sure.
I love that. Absolutely. We yeah, that would be so cool.
I think it would be super cool. I mean, we want to go max collab for sure with everybody, and really focus though on one thing, which is Ethereum security, because at least in my decade with Ethereum, I've seen so many nonprofits lose their crypto that they fundraised for in just a variety of ways, and it breaks my heart, and just simple things like sending money to the right address on the wrong chain, sending money to like getting hacked by phishers, of course, or even just buying shit coins, like like
investment.
Yes, bad investment, being scammed, listening to the wrong people. I mean, there's so many ways to lose money in crypto, and I think there are lots of ways that we could actually prevent people though from losing money. And so having like a really strong focus just on Ethereum security is I'm just really excited about it, and we can maybe really make a big impact in a niche, because we've been always, and I feel like maybe Octant, you might have felt this too, like Giveth has always been so broadly focused, and I feel like we're not like moving the needle anywhere. We're just helping a little bit here and there. And so this time we're going to try to stay super narrow scope and focused. And
I love this. So, and also, I mean, Giveth was one of our grantees in our earlier rounds. And then, as we started getting more specific with themes, that changed. But I've loved how funding is just possible. And I think y'all are one of the last maybe two stewards besides Gitcoin and us that are still funding real world problems through Giveth. Like, I think as a platform, and just even from what you all have funded in times of need as well around the world, like it's just been so cool to see. But I also completely understand that specific approach. It's what we've also learned from is like, you can try to do everything and not get anywhere, or you get really specific and you get to really make a lot more movement. And I get it. And I think that is the right approach too.
Super cool. And it's great to see, like, I think, as you said, full circle, right? Like, the DAO, it's back, which is crazy. I think Mashal and I were just, we were talking earlier, we're like, how many DAOs are there really left, And so just having one of the OGs come back is really cool, and making an impact. Yeah. And actually, I would love to kind of zoom out a bit, and like, since this is a very kind of like ETH public goods aligned conversation here, is like zooming out. Like, I think we're in a very interesting spot in not crypto history, but I guess like in time right now, right? Like, it feels like there's a lot of bullish momentum, I guess, at least from my perspective. But curious to get your guys' thoughts on where are we as people who've been in the space for a while. What are you guys most excited about? I mean, Vitalik just posted yesterday, right, about this whole, not that we don't need L2s, but L2s need to exist beyond just scaling. They need to have a purpose beyond scaling, right? Because it seems like ETH is actually starting to scale and potentially solve that trilemma, right? Potentially, TBD. But hot takes, I don't know. Curious to hear what
They're
you
like,
guys are. Yeah,
not sure.
yeah. Well, again, it's like, so let's see. I want to hear. Yeah,
the bull comment on like a week of like just down 20% or something crazy.
Yeah, the market shift, but that's a separate conversation. We're gonna talk about that.
Oh,
Yeah, but I mean, I'm bullish on the community. I feel like also when we have the bear market kind of trends, like the vibes get so much better.
Yeah.
It's less about like making money and and more about building. And of course, AI is just going to be huge. I mean, it's making it so much
Yeah.
easier to build. Like we're rebuilding Giveth from scratch because now we have the
Mm.
tool and it's going to be fast and easy. And like
It's been major for us too. We've been trying to build a lot of our, like, as like a marketing DAO, like we haven't been able to really, there's no infrastructure for us, you know, like we hacked this thing together for 4 years using Airtable and Notion and everything else. And we're like, we have to pay a global network in USDC, but then we have to like, and the same thing, like now with AI, we can like build these things so much quicker. It's incredible. So actually, I want to kind of build on that actually for both you guys, like, and maybe Mashal, I guess, since Griff just said his thing a little bit, but like state of ETH, obviously, but like, have you guys been thinking about, you know, hate to do it, but AI and how it plays into
Claudebot.
all this, everything you're doing? Claudebot, when Claude Octant, you know, Octant Claude. Yeah.
Keywords
Insert.
notebook.
Listen, Griff brought it up. I didn't mention it.
We are running a lot of experiments
Yeah.
to, and we're also, I think, across different teams, we're both running experiments and trying to see how where can we chop off, like, and what can we make more efficient in terms of, and
Yeah.
chopping off in terms of like time usage, right?
Mhm.
If you have tools that can help make you more efficient, even your daily schedules, like why not? And then we have a lot of even individual team members that have done some really cool experiments. I think one of our social media lead created something called Mashalify, where anything you type, it's gonna edit it in the style that I would.
Oh, amazing. Let's go.
So these are like internal marketing experiments, right? Like maybe the
Mhm.
person like who is editing all your content and overseeing everything, like you literally create.
I'll tell you right now, when we finish this, Riverside already at the platform we use, it chops it up for us. So I can tell you, I love you, Rogan, but your job is definitely getting easier.
Absolutely.
producer.
And then
Yeah.
our creative lead, Sarah, like she has been, I mean, our videos, I mean, using AI tools and literally, those are not real actors that are paying. Those are AI
Yeah.
actors. If you want to call them that, I don't know what the right verbiage is for AI people, things, entities, deities. I don't know. Just
Yeah.
don't kill me when you do take over. But just overall, like I think there is no choice but to learn
Yeah.
and to experiment. I still think we're like from a security perspective, I have so many concerns around a lot of things,
Yeah.
but I don't think that should stop experimentation. So we're gonna keep doing stuff from marketing front. Like we're trying to okay, I'm conflicted because part of me, like,
Mhm.
I don't want to let AI near my writing. Just
Yeah.
no way, right? Everything else, though, or let's try it out. And I
Yeah.
know AI is being used so much, but even as an editor, I hate it. And I hate when writing feels so AI. And this is
Yeah.
why I've been going to Substack to read longer posts because I can't with Twitter AI. Even when it's better AI editors, like, it's still so clear. I just need
Mhm.
to read human content. I am sick of this. So I think there's pros and cons. I think people have overdone it already on Twitter, and that's why the timeline feels so annoying right now. But after scrolling through Substack, it felt like old school Tumblr times, and I was like, wait,
Mm.
this used to feel so good. Scrolling used
Yeah.
to feel like you were connecting with people and not with their AI edited versions and voices. So I think there's good ways and bad ways to use AI from a
Yeah.
marketing perspective. We don't want to be left behind. So, of course, we're going to keep trying stuff out. And I'm also open to it. But the media side of me is still like, not near my
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
we will
here's my question though: is
Yeah.
like, what role? And I don't know, I don't want to like force anything, right? But I am curious, like, what role it will play in eventual like public goods. Whether it's, I don't know, like, does
I
it
can tell
play
you,
a
I'll give you
role?
some
Does it
ideas,
not?
like reporting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much of time gets spent on reporting what you've done in updates and stuff for funders. If
Yeah.
you have tools that help automate that, and if you've already got your
Yeah.
files, and like I think AI tools can help with that. Even with reporting sides, the evaluation side comparisons, like even data comparisons
Yeah.
and whatnot, in the operational processes as well. Like there's a lot that it can help save you time for, and like that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I think
Got
it's
it.
going to give. I think there's huge opportunity for public goods and AI. Just ridiculous. I mean, from so much knowledge work can be done and give access to. Like, imagine if every person who's experiencing homelessness, they had like someone they could talk to constantly that would help them get through their tough times. Right? Just like in your pocket psychologist. What a public good would that be? You know?
Or even resource allocation, right? Like there are experiments even around a lot of times resources exist, people just don't know about them or don't have access or don't know how to get to them. So I
Mm-hmm.
think just building off of what Griff you just said, you know, if there
Now
were
that's super cool. So like public good
like a map,
agents that, like in the best case, they're be human, but we have to be honest with the realities of the world. Of like we can't always afford that, right?
Yeah.
So enabling broader access to information, like you guys are saying, that can really help people in need would be pretty major. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of different angles and
Who's
possibilities.
building this? Someone should build this.
Oh,
Yeah.
so many people are building it. I'm sure of it. I mean, there's so many applications. You know, that's just like one random
Mhm.
thought, right? In fact, there's do you guys know Virtuals, right?
Yeah, of course.
They have 60 days AI. It's a really interesting project. I'm almost thinking about getting some Givethers just to experiment with it, because they'll actually pay you $5K a month for 2 months to launch a token for an AI agent, right, on their platform, and they'll give you $10K to do it, and you just have to build in public. And so, like,
Oh,
you know, you could build an AI agent that is doing some kind of good, and people could actually invest in it. 'Cause, you know, this is the angle that I always thought I would love to see public goods like take is an opportunity, be able to invest in public goods. Like that's why
Yeah.
I love GLM. I can buy GLM, and I feel like I'm investing in public goods. You know, give tokens, and even same with Ether and Bitcoin. You know, when
Yeah.
Bitcoin came around, you know, how would you send money to someone in like, you know, the continents away?
Yep.
And take days and all this stuff. Now anyone in the world could create a Bitcoin address and receive money from anyone else in the world. These are like financial roads. These are public goods, you know, and how is that funded? Not from donations and not from taxes, but from economics, from issuing a currency and creating demand for that currency. And I
Yeah.
feel like that is the secret sauce to public goods. That's even the secret sauce that governments use to fund public goods, right? They issue a currency, for example, the US dollar, and they print money, and then they give it to the government. The government does stuff. It's supposed to be public goods. Most of the time it's
It's a
not. But
question
like,
of how efficiently it's run, right? And then that's
Yeah.
like
No.
yeah.
And then bring it back to like what you said, Vitalik's tweet around L2s need to be taxed.
Yeah.
You know, those taxes can then maybe help fund sustainably using DeFi, just Ethereum as a whole and Ethereum security and just a lot of other aspects of Ethereum overall, because someone needs to keep Ethereum safe and also just growing. And competing. And if there's one thing that I have learned after attending my first Solana event at the end of last year, which I really, really enjoyed, and I think you can totally be like positive sum for everybody,
Yep.
results. We got to focus on that and just more
Yes.
momentum for any project and builder, right? We are not in a time where I loved your report where it gave a glimpse of pre-2020 and post like till 2024 in terms of funding. 100%. There was so much of funding going on. But the last year has been really tough for any public good or just projects in general. Even projects that aren't public goods are struggling to get funded. And yes, you have projects that have raised a lot of money, but most builders don't fall in that category. And so the one difference I saw in Solana is like everyone spoke in a language of metrics, results, and it just felt so much more sophisticated. Bringing that to Ethereum, where you're seeing results, you're seeing more growth in an ecosystem. And that happens when you focus on that very specific angle, right? And so when you have players that are focusing on that sustainability, revenue, like let's move out of just internet money and just in free access to funding, because there aren't also many funders left. Everyone's only funding what contributes to their ecosystem. How funding is given out is so much more specific, and you need to show so much more than you used to even 2 years ago. So I think if we focus on results and metrics and just growth and even just practical economics, really, you will see results and you will be able to get access to funding that way if you just, deliver and ship.
I really
love
hope that we can start taking a coalition model. Like I'm seriously looking at starting an Ethereum security coalition, because like you're saying, so much funding by all these L2s and all these people who have raised a lot of money and have the money to solve problems. They're focused on their own ecosystems. But some problems are across many ecosystems, you know, and that's where coalitions of aligned, incentivized individuals could actually contribute into that, and hopefully we can solve our shared problems together, as opposed to everyone's just like looking in their own ecosystem and maybe free riding off the people who end up solving these collective problems.
Yep. Plus
I
one
love
to
it.
all of that.
Well, listen, guys, I really want to keep this. This is a really fun conversation. I'm really glad we
Part
had this
two.
one. This is we might have to do a follow-up at some point, I think. But unfortunately we do have to get running. But I would love to kind of cap this off with, normally at the end we do rapid fire questions, but I think we have 2 guests here today. And I think, Pauline, if you don't mind, I think we just ask the last one. Maybe we
Yeah.
just skip the others.
Yep.
We have one question we've asked every guest. We've done a couple different iterations of this over the years. But every guest, we always ask this one question, which is, it's more like a self-reflection thing of, if you had to look back at the past year and all the stuff you've done, at your job and otherwise as well, but like, what is your biggest professional learning is the main question.
Execution beats everything else. Consistent execution. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if your strategy sucks. It doesn't matter if the timing sucks or the market's not good or great or whatever. Like, I think as long as you can execute,
Yeah.
and a lot of people can't. There's going to be some level of learning. I think if you're an execution first person and you can execute well, no matter
Yeah.
which area, field, whatever it is, you will just get ahead. And I think a lot of things are just the long-term game, right? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people are like one-hit wonders. They do one thing really well and then they don't really know how to sustain it. But if you can constantly keep executing, it's something I tell my team as well. It doesn't matter how many wins we had last year, but we're only as good as our next one a lot of times.
No,
So
you're right. Yeah.
so you just, I mean, the reality of the space is we're in a very hyper competitive world and time and ecosystem too. So you got to keep executing. You can't just, there's no time to be passive. And I think
I
as
love
a
it.
professional learning, that's the only thing that's kept me and brought me to where I am, is like, I pride myself on execution. I pride my team on that. And if you can't do that, you kind of don't have a space, at least in my opinion. Like, this is what I respect too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting shit done, being consistent, showing up every day. Because it's like, you fuck up today, it sucks, but you just got to pick yourself up and keep moving the next day. And eventually it stacks, right? I think that's kind of what you're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
For me, for me, it's don't count your chickens before they're hatched. Do basic accounting and have what do you call it? Not plan B, but more like backup. In case, make sure you're leaving yourself some room to breathe in case things don't go the way that you expect them to go. I have this problem. I'm very optimistic. Maybe even recklessly optimistic. And so things that I think, oh yeah, that's going to happen this way. This is going to happen that way. These things will all happen. That'll be great.
Right.
Planning, making plans. Like I've saved myself many times this year. Just having plans like, okay, yes, that will happen. But what if it doesn't, And
Bit of
like,
wiggle room allows you to be consistent, right? Because if you go all in and you lose all your money or you run out of budget, then you can't keep
exactly.
pushing, right?
How are we going to keep paying the salaries? I don't, these are tough times. Layoffs are
Yeah.
all around. I don't want to lay off my people. And I definitely don't want to be in a place where you have to lay off huge swaths. You got to make some cuts early. You have to be prepared for potential downturns, and so if you can be, sure, I'm going to be recklessly optimistic. There's no way around that. It's just
we need
how
the world here and there. It's okay. Yeah.
but I still can also be prepared for if things
Yes.
go poorly, and and make sure that I'm always under promising, over delivering, along the execution. I want to maintain that. And so how do you be recklessly optimistic, but not over promise? You have to have some backup plans. So that's
I love
the-
that.
Love
And the
that.
financial part is so important too. Like, even like personal finances, but also just like company finances, you owe it to your team to be good
Absolutely.
at that if you're a builder. So I love
Absolutely.
that.
Because
No,
you can
and-
be recklessly optimistic and it's important, but if there are other people who are counting on you, you have to be responsible too, right?
Yeah, accountability too, right? Like, this is just a big part of that too. And it's one that I just think most teams didn't even consider and factor in, like the exodus of layoffs this year, even just from like
It
last
sucks.
month to this month.
Yeah.
There's so much of like good talent and great people that are on the market right now, and it's not their fault. It's just, again, budget cuts, right? People overspend and then realize, oh wait, we can't afford any of this, so let's cut everything down. And I think that's just so unfortunate.
No, I mean, it's funny because
Very
my
cool.
team, we have all this DAO stuff that we have to do, and the team is begging me to hire, and I'm like, we can't. because we still have people on our team that don't have hours. We got to use the people, you got to have commitment to your team and who they are. And they're not AI bots. They're real humans with families and job, and they need this money. So yeah, that kind of commitment is really critical. And yeah, don't want to overstretch. Yeah.
All right, folks, I hate to do it, but we got to get wrapping. But this was incredible. Thanks so much for contributing to the report, for doing what you do. I'm very excited for 2026. I smell a collab coming. Yeah, let's see what happens later this year. But thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for being a part of this. And we'll see you guys soon. We'll see you at the next conference, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good one. And thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thanks, Blake. Thanks, Polina.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one. Ciao, ciao.